Recording in progress.
Hello there. Say it again. Barely, I can't hear you.
See now.
That's a little bit better. I think I heard Linda, I can hear you.
I have the computer.
Okay. I can hear you very clearly.
Okay.
So one of them's gonna have to be. It's probably.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can hear Mr.
Miss Mary
Irwin, I
Jo.
can hear you very clearly now also.
Okay,
But I do hear an echo.
we do too. Lots of. Testing. Test. Well, that one's muted. No,
Is it picking up the mic?
the mic's not on.
Would it be helpful if I remained on camera but called the number?
I don't have an answer.
And now I can hear you and I don't hear the echo.
Yeah, because we turned all the mics off.
Okay.
How is everybody? You can try that. Do you want to unhook it from the display, Miss Mary Jo? Check. Everything? It sounds like we're still coming through the system. So something's picking up. You sure you've got the whole sound system muted, Miss Mary Jo? I don't know. Something's picking up because it's coming through the sound system. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Tuesday, February 25th Policy Committee meeting. I appreciate you guys being in attendance. We do have Mr. Cunningham and Mr. Nixon, Superintendent Williams, Dr. Bagley and Ms. Linda. Ms. Jasmine is joining us virtually via Zoom, so we appreciate her being here. And we do not have any members of the public. We do have a couple of other board members who are just sitting and observing. So we'll just go ahead and jump in and get started. The first policy is item 1.02, policy GCEC, posting and advertising of professional vacancies. Committee members, you should have the original policy that has no markups on it at all. And then you should have a second version of that same policy that has some yellow highlighting and some red. And Ms. Jasmine, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the recommendations from you guys. Is that correct?
It is. It's just, I would just say proposed, it's proposed options.
Sure.
That we wanted to present for further discussion and consideration by the administration and by the policy committee, so that you could talk about, maybe which language might best suit the district's needs.
Sure. Okay, so Superintendent Williams, I will be more than happy to defer to you first, and then we'll go
Sure.
from there.
Not a problem. Thank you, Mr. Irwin. So basically, this policy, the revisions that have been made to the policy just adds more specificity to the policy. And what I'd really like is I would really like for the board to just kind of look at this policy. Let's talk and just have some discussions about things that you like about what has been added, things that you may not like about what has been added, and then the administration would like to have more time to come back together, taking your feedback into consideration to maybe revise it even more. But I will let you know some of the main changes. If you look down at the part that's highlighted in yellow, this part just says that the board declares its support of a policy that gives teachers and administrators from its present staff consideration with respect to filling of promotional vacancies. And those vacancies are vacancies such as principal or assistant principal, or directors or coordinators, any position that would promote an existing staff to another position. Now, this is not saying that we will not give consideration to external candidates, because we will. Internal and external candidates are considered. But looking at the language of other districts in our state, our legal counsel was able to draft and just put some things in for your consideration. That's one of the recommendations that it is in this policy. And if you look at the second page, there are exceptions for posting job vacancies, and those exceptions are listed as bullets. There are 4 bullets on the second page as exceptions for posting vacancies. And if we want to talk about the ones that are listed here, or if we want to add any other exceptions, or if we just want to leave it as a broad statement that the administration has the ability to determine, if there will be an exception to posting a position. And then the last, if you look at the second page, you'll see highlighted in yellow, it says the administration will generally advertise all administrative and supervisory job vacancies within the district unless otherwise determined by the superintendent or his or her designee upon the district's needs. No promotional vacancy will be filled unless it has been posted for at least 3 school days unless the superintendent authorizes the placement based on the needs of the district. So basically, this statement is just giving the administration some flexibility based upon the needs of the district. So if we want to just kind of look at the policy, just kind of talk a little bit about what you like, what you do not like, what we can consider to add or take out or revise. That would be good at this time.
Okay, let me just start, Superintendent Williams, at the bottom of page 1 in the highlighted yellow section, where we were talking about support of a policy to give teachers and administrators from and present staff consideration. We have no qualifying word in front of consideration, so we're not saying that they're going to have an advantage, that they're going to be seen as better. All it says is the board supports the possibility of
Correct.
internal candidates.
That's
Right,
correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right. I do have another question, but committee members Nixon and Cunningham, I will give you the floor if you guys have any questions or comments for what Superintendent Williams has proposed.
I wish there was a comma after administrators and after staff, and that highlighted,
The highlighted part.
right,
Well,
because,
we can definitely do commas. We can do that.
Oh, yes.
because that way you have the qualifier. You know, we're gonna look at the administrators and teachers from present school, so. that-
Right, okay.
Give them consideration. So,
Mr. Nixon, anything else?
I don't see anything else that,
Mr. Cunningham, anything?
No, I was with Mr. Nixon,
Okay.
comma.
Okay.
Agreed. That's-
If you want to take a moment to look at those exceptions,
I did look at those, and I
Yeah.
saw that you have in brackets there, are there any other exceptions which may apply? I'm trying to think of any other exceptions that should be there.
Ms. Jasmine, as we're kind of looking at this and just kind of perusing over it, is there anything else that you have to add other than what we've already got presented?
No, and again, there's just, it's options for the board to consider, particularly towards the end of the policy. You could either, because I think, the main thing is just to make it clear, that there may be very rare circumstances in which a position may be filled without it being advertised. And you could have the ability to specify, when those rare occasions would be, so that, it's very clear the rationale behind the lack of a posting. Or you could have the more general language as an alternative, which is highlighted below, if you didn't want to identify. And these are just some circumstances or situations that we've seen where it might warrant filling a vacancy without it being advertised or posted. There might be some benefit to, again, going back and consulting with human resources to see, based on experiences, if you decide to go with the option of identifying those particular instances in which there would not be a posting, consulting with human resources further just to see if anything is missed. I did have a chance to consult with HR initially and got some feedback, but I probably would suggest, and I think Superintendent Williams was going to do the same, and reaching back out to human resources to see if there's anything else, any other scenarios that should be identified if you do decide to list the rare occasions in which the vacancy will not be posted. Or again, you could use the more broad language, which would encompass, various instances without having to identify every particular scenario.
I think addressing this in specific language would be more beneficial, instead of leaving it as a broad category. That way, there's no confusion about the exceptions. I do know that we do have a representative from Human Resources here, and I don't want to put her on the spot, but Ms. Stevens, I don't know if you have the policy in hand. You don't have it in hand. Do you have extra policy that you could give her? I'd like for you to look at those exceptions that are listed at the top of page 2, and from your experience in Human Resources, if there's any other exceptions that you can think of that need to be added.
While she's doing that, I do have a question, and I was looking over both pages. Once we post this a job and advertise it, do we have a set time when it's going to take it down after a period of time?
So it has to be advertised for at least 3 days.
Okay, I didn't see it I didn't see it in it. It's something that we don't have to post.
It is in there somewhere, Ms. Cunningham. I gotta remember where it is.
I was looking up and down.
The bottom highlighted paragraph on page 2. That highlighted section says for at least 3 school days.
Oh, okay. I see it now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to say, I think I prefer the more specific bullets because, and the second one that says, the existence of a pressing condition requiring the vacancy to be filled expediently. If someone, I always used to tell people, and when I was teaching, if I, died in a car accident, they needed somebody there tomorrow.
Right.
So that to me is that expediency that that I can appreciate the superintendent having the authority to do that.
My concern, so I come
Completely understood.
And I don't know, Ms. Jasmine, if that's as simple as maybe where we have generally, if maybe we can put in, rare or something to that, just so we can have specific language in there that says this should not be
The
just a
norm.
whim, right? It should, unless there are significant reasons, like Mr. Nixon said, that are explicitly spelled out, we need to make sure that we're posting these positions.
Well, and I certainly understand, your point with that, Mr. Irwin. I think what I would say is, that word generally is listed not to give the ability to just arbitrarily depart from the rule, but to compensate in the event there is a particular rare scenario that's not listed, that all of the great minds that are in this room right now are not thinking about that way. The district has flexibility in another rare circumstances that's not listed in order to be able to in case, there needed to be a departure from, for whatever reason.
Right.
So, sometimes it's helpful to have that language so you're not limited. Again, I don't think it would lend itself towards using this rule or for someone to come in and arbitrarily, decide to depart from the requirement of posting, but you might also want language in there that does allow you that flexibility in another rare circumstance that might not be expressly identified.
And-
If that makes sense, but, whatever, the pleasure is of the administration of the board, we're happy to modify, accordingly. But I just wanted to kind of explain, with that term general, the benefits that happen in there, or take it out, we might need to add, some other language that would, allow, another scenario in case it's not identified.
And that paragraph is one that would be used if we opt not to use the specific bullets that you listed prior to that, because as I see it, it says alternative to specifying exceptions.
I think that's for the following paragraph.
Yeah, the term generally is,
You know, 3 days, 3 weeks, a month.
My recommendation, Mr. Chairman and Madam Superintendent, I look at, I guess, 3 days. I think it should be a little longer than 3 days. I think 5 days give people time, and then you're being transparent with people out there in the community. They have that opportunity, because some people can't get a resume together in 3 days. You know, sometimes it's going to take them a little longer, and they got to do some background, you know, make sure that's the job they are applying for. That's just my belief, Jasmine, that I think it's 5 days should be a good number instead of 3 days. And that's just me, you know. I know you said that earlier that most people do 3 days, but I think 5 days, let's give them a little more time to get their application together and their resume.
Do you know of any instances where an advertisement has been taken down after 3 days? Because I think it's generally,
It depends on the hiring manager. We have a position at Bell that was taken out once she received like 16 applicants.
right. Okay.
Ms. Eden, just for clarification, whenever you are referring to the hiring,
No, sir, I think we have enough information that we can go back now and have conversation with legal to make sure that we revise it based upon your feedback.
Dr. Badley, I would be remiss, since we have your expertise sitting at the table,
said until filled. We have advertised the position until filled, letting people know that we're waiting for applications in sufficient number. And the other, I've really never seen posted more than 3 days. I've usually seen that as the general rule. Of course, you know, it's always up for discussion, and your points are very well made. But that's the only two, is that sometimes you give yourself a little leeway by saying until filled.
okay? And Ms. Stevens, with you being our
The reason for that, I think it gives examples, and it gives clarification to what might be. That's what stood out to me in this policy. It gives examples of what exceptions could be, for nothing more than clarification.
Okay?
The people get an idea.
Duly noted. Ms. Stevens, anything else from HR's perspective? On that particular issue, I heard Mr. Cunningham suggest 5. Dr. Bagley suggested maybe we leave it at 3, and I don't think Mr. Nixon and I have weighed in one way or the other on it.
Okay.
I think 3 suffices.
So Mr. Nixon says he's good with 3. So what we can do, Mr. Cunningham, just so you know, if we propose it at 3, whenever we have first or second reading, of course, you have the ability during that meeting to suggest that change if you would like to.
Yeah, it's really up to the identifying and the exceptions that would apply to when
So-
vacancy would not be posted, or just having a more general.
So technically, I don't think we've landed anywhere yet, because our HR representative and Dr. Bagley both suggested the specific exceptions being listed. So I don't think we've moved past that yet, but we do have Trustee Murdoch is just kind of in.
Mr. Cunningham was talking about?
Yes, sir.
Most of the time, people that are applying for a job already have their resume out. It's ready to go. As soon as they see a job that they're looking for, boom, it's there. So, the 3 days probably would be sufficient. But I just wanted to share that with you, but that's just something that
Thank you, Mr. Murdoch. Committee members, Mr. Nixon, Mr. Cunningham, having heard
The end of that, so that you can do the such as and then the bullets after that, which will give some people an idea of what you're looking for.
So just so we're clear with Ms. Jasmine, we're talking about using the paragraph in the middle of page 2. Yes. But Ms. Jasmine, you heard us say earlier to change that to say the administration will generally advertise all job vacancies, including administrative and supervisory. And then I think what I'm hearing from Superintendent Williams and from Board Member Nixon is then at the end of that paragraph, using the line that is the last line on the paragraph in page 1 that says such as principal, assistant principal, etc. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
And using those listed exceptions. Did I make that confusing enough, Ms. Jasmine?
Well, I think I'm following, so you would go with that first sentence in the highlighted paragraph,
Yes, ma'am.
but we need to specify, you said, such as principal,
Yeah, that's the last line from the other paragraph. They just want that such as in there and then go into the bulleted exceptions that are listed.
okay.
Yep.
And, and if,
Big-
you can always, if there's still, thoughts or different thoughts or feelings about specifying or using general language, when it's presented to the board for first reading, you can have the options and, open up the discussion, further to get the
Sure.
entire board's input.
Yes, ma'am.
There's particular issues that, the committee's not able to agree on, but I'll certainly incorporate these changes.
Okay.
Okay.
And then, I guess just going back to the language regarding, promotions, is that something that the policy committee felt they wanted to keep in there for the full board's consideration and discussion, or is that something that, you don't feel is necessary to have?
I personally think that is a good statement just to voice this board's support in promoting from within. Mr. Nixon, Mr. Cunningham?
But I think I also agree that too, that you need some language just to make it clear though that this is not a statement saying that external candidates will not be given, consideration. Also, this is not limiting promotions only.
Sure, yeah, we just want to make sure, and currently as it's written there, I believe, 3 different versions of this policy. The first one, I'm going to call the clean copy that has no highlights or anything on it. That is our policy as it stands to date. The second one that begins with a green box in the upper right-hand corner of page 1 that says Policy KF New Draft. Superintendent Williams, if I am not mistaken, that is the one that was proposed from Dr. Wright.
That is correct.
And then Ms. Jasmine, the one with all of the underlining and the strike through is what our legal presented to us. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So committee members, we have those 3 in front of us for our consideration to go through. Okay, Superintendent Williams, you want to go
Yes,
first?
if I may, if you would just turn your attention to the one that our legal counsel outlined for us. I think that's the one we really need to focus our attention on.
Okay.
We will give consideration to the policy that Dr. Wright submitted. As I was talking to legal, the policy that Dr. Wright submitted is more specific in details, and we will need to probably have an administrative rule that outlines the fees and the application process and those things. So we will use this one as a general guide as we're developing that administrative rule.
Okay.
But to look at general policy, we need to look at the one that counsel, our legal counsel has outlined for us. And we need to do the same thing that we did with the other policy. We need to look at it, look at what we like, what we do not like. Is there language, additional language that we need to add? Do we need to take out some things? And I can start the conversation concerning that for your consideration. As I was reading through, I didn't see anything in the policy concerning renting the school facilities as a one-time use, like one-time events. There is a bullet in here, I think it's the fourth bullet that talks about groups that are renting the facility for more than one consecutive month during a 12-month period. And I think that language needs to be in here as well. But I think we do need to, just give consideration to those persons who are just renting it for a one-time event.
Okay.
I do know there are some organizations that may have a 2-day event, that they want to rent the facilities for, and as long as it's not interfering with the regular operations of the school, I don't see a problem with that.
Okay.
We've also had in the past Mission Serve, who have used our facilities over a length of time, and I think, as a community, we need to open our facilities to organizations such as that help others in our community. So that's what I see that we
Okay.
need to think about.
And I do, board members or committee members, I do just want to bring your attention, and I'm going to be a little intentionally vague, but I think you will understand what I'm talking about. There is a part of this proposed policy from legal that you will remember we are having some discussions of contractual matters in executive session, so I will not go further into that. But there is part of this policy that may be stricken because it may not even be applicable to us anymore, and you'll find that on page 2 of that, okay? So that part, I don't know that we need to spend much time dealing with yet until the board does what it needs to do in executive session. But the rest of this policy, Ms. Jasmine and Ms. Allison have stricken through a lot and given us a good recommendation here. So I would be more than open to hearing whatever your comments or suggestions are on policy KF.
If I could say this,
I guess one of my questions on what the attorneys have submitted, I don't know whether you worked on it or not, but the attorneys, it says clearly that school-sponsored programs, clubs, organizations take precedence over all other uses. And my question is, if someone books the playground at some school for a function of a family reunion, if I book it in February, but then a school program comes along in April and wants that same date, do then I lose that date because of it being a school organization? Since school functions or school organizations take precedence over others. And so that's my question, because if I booked it 2 months in advance, then they come along 2 months later and just kick me out, how does that serve me?
That's a very good question, Mr. Nixon. However, generally, whoever books the facility first will usually be the organization that will be able to use it. So we usually do that in reverse. So if you are wanting to book a facility for a family reunion, and the school has already booked it for that date, then you won't have an opportunity to use it. But if you book it first, normally we will honor your booking because you booked it in February, whereas the school didn't, unless it's an extreme. I can't think of any extreme cases where we have not honored the booking of a community organization that's already had it on the books. We generally try to honor that because, we're working with the community and we want to be a service to our community as well. But we also, the way it's written, I think we probably need to take a look at that. I understand what you're saying, but generally we honor those requests.
Superintendent Williams, who makes the decision?
And also that language is put in there too, just to kind of from the outset to make it clear that, okay, the district has property and, the priority obviously is going to be, the use of the facilities for person.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Jasmine, you probably the same page of policy KF, community use of school facility, where it says school buildings are available to church group for worship service. I'm looking at, say that the church must provide documents why the church is getting renovated or something. They have to bring documents to show that the church is getting work done on it? Is that something that is the law that we have to do this? They have to show that?
Did you hear that, Ms. Jasmine?
I think you're talking about a provision that would allow a church to utilize the district's facilities when they're in the process of building one.
Right. And I'm looking at, say, just have to have documents showing that their church is getting something done to it, getting work done on it. Bless you.
The policy right now says they have to submit that documentation proving. I think Mr. Cunningham's question is, do we have to have that in there saying that they have to prove the?
Okay, I think that's something need to be dismissed out of.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, 'cause was the question, do you need that provision in your policy to allow churches to utilize,
No, ma'am. I think his question was, under that, allowing church groups to use the facility, do we have to have the wording that says they have to produce documentation showing their construction or whatever?
that's an administrative, decision. I think it's put in there so that, obviously it's very clear. I think it just helps everybody, you're on the same page and there's no questions. So I think it benefits the district, obviously, just to have that documentation. Legally, is it required? I would say no. It's more just to benefit the district.
And I would just throw this out there to our policy committee as we're kind of looking at this, and we're going to have to wrap up because we have this other meeting coming up. Anytime we talk about just because you would like for this particular denomination church to be able to use your facility, but you may not like this other denomination to be able to use your facility, whenever you make the right available, you make it available to everybody, whether you agree with them or not. So some of these things, some of the more specifics, I think, Ms. Jasmine, we need to wrap up just because we have this budget work session. So let me ask you a question real quick. We need to work on this administrative rule. Would it be advisable for us as the policy committee to go ahead and offer the proposed language that legal has sent us for first reading, or do we need to hold off on even the first reading until we gather this administrative rule and get that hammered out?
I think I would hold off on a first reading until the policy committee, either approves, this proposed language. I mean, if you said today, we're comfortable with this proposed language, it could go forward, and we could always work on a rule later, but it would probably be most beneficial to have that conversation with the administration where, we're going back with the feedback we got today, and we're coming forward with something that meets the needs and desires of the policy committee to present to the board.
Okay.
But it does, I know time did not permit to get through this entire policy, so I mean, I don't know today if the policy committee likes what's proposed or not.
So
I don't know if you'd be in a position to present it to the board without having the support of the policy committee.
So here's what I'm going to suggest, committee members, and you tell me if you're in agreement with this. Let's go ahead and propose policy GCEC on the posting and advertising of professional vacancies. We will propose that to the board for first reading. Let's hold off on policy KF, and then at our next policy committee meeting. And I understand that part of the reason why we're dealing with policy KF is because there are some issues that are needed in this policy now. So let's get together and see if we can't go ahead and get another policy committee scheduled. And we will start with this policy KF at that next meeting. That'll give all three of us a chance to make sure we're comfortable with the proposed language and that'll give us an opportunity to get with Superintendent Williams and the administration, so we can go ahead and get a head start on that administrative rule too, before we present that. Is everybody in agreement with that?
Works for me.
Mr. Cunningham, are you good with that? Okay, Superintendent Williams, is there anything
yep.
else in closing?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, in addition to that, the administration would like to get together with legal to kind of talk about some of the changes to KF that we talked about tonight.
Okay.
To present back to the policy committee for further discussion.
Okay, that'll be great.